There have been so many sounds, from cars to construction to lawn mowing. I'm just really hoping I can get this filmed in a reasonable amount of time. Hello everybody, my name is Danny and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my October wrap-up and November Skee-B-R TBR. I cannot believe that November is already upon us. We're in the final couple of months of the year. If you did not know, I'm actually hosting a readathon during November and December. I will link the announcement down below if you haven't seen that already. I'm so excited, so I'm hoping to get some of my TBR picks from that onto this TBR, but we'll see how things go. First up, we have to talk about the books that I read in October, and I'm actually going to start off with one that I did not read. It was on my Skee-B-R TBR, and that book was The 13th Tale. As you can see, I put a bookmark in it because I had every intention of reading this, and then I just didn't. There were a lot of books on my TBR that I was not sure that I would get to fit in for the month, but then some I thought were going to take forever actually were really quick reads, and so this is the only one I didn't get to fit in. That does mean I have to pull from the punishment jar, which I don't think I've had to do since like June when I read the Caraval trilogy. I'm hoping the jar is as nice to me now as it was then, but yes, I did not read the 13th Tale. But I promise I will read this before the end of the year. Like, it's going to happen. It has to. Now, getting into the books that I actually did read, the first one I picked up was The Golden Yarn by Cornelia Funk. This is the third book in the Reckless series, also known as the Mirror World series, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've reread the book since it came out, which is kind of strange to me. I didn't realize that until I started reading it, and I'm like, I don't remember having read this multiple times, but it did still have that familiarity of a reread. I gave this a 9 out of 10. Definitely not my favorite in the series, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that now I'm caught up enough to finally read the fourth book for the first time. I cannot wait. Then I read Wuthering Heights, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. I'm not holding it up because, like I said in the, I believe it was the Pumpkin Spice Latte basic book tag, it's at the bottom of a very tall stack of books, and I, once again, did not feel like pulling it out, but I really enjoyed this book so much more than I thought it would. It, like, sucked me in. The characters are absolutely detestable, but I could not stop reading them. I just like the drama, I guess, and this book was full of it. Then I actually picked up two books at the same time, and they were Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare and If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I read that as an ebook, so I don't have it physically. This I gave a 7 out of 10, and If We Were Villains I gave a 9 out of 10. I actually picked up If We Were Villains first, and then this is the play that they are performing in that book. It's like a very Shakespeare heavy book, and so I'm like, wait, I have that and I haven't read it. So I pulled up a performance that I found on YouTube and watched along with reading it, and that's just the way I prefer to read plays nowadays, especially Shakespeare, and I had a really good time. Then I went back and finished If We Were Villains. They also perform I believe it was King Lear in If We Were Villains, like the second half of the book, and I don't own that physically, otherwise I would have done the exact same thing. But yes, it was a very enjoying experience. I had a good time. I don't think I said that, like, I don't think that was a real word. It's fine, we're just gonna move on. Then I picked up In the Hall with the Knife by Diana Peterfront, and I also gave this a 7 out of 10, and I really enjoyed this. It's very cheesy, very campy, but it's a YA murder mystery inspired by the board game Clue, so would you not expect it to be cheesy and campy? It wasn't my favorite thing ever, but I still had a really good time, and I don't think I would go out of my way to read the two sequels, but I would like to read them at some point, maybe if I find them in like a bargain sale. But yeah, it was a fun time. After that, I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier in this awful Netflix adaptation cover. I know I say that every time I hold up this book, but I just cannot stand this cover. The colors, super cool. Hate this, like, zoom in on their faces and, like, personally. It's just a really weird cover. Anyway, I give this an 8 out of 10. I really liked it. This book was wild. Again, like Wuthering Heights, there's just so much drama in it, and I'm here for it. The beginning was pretty slow, and it took me like 3, 4, 5 chapters to actually get into it, but once I got into it, I zoomed through this. I think I read like 200 pages in one day, it was just such a good time. Then I picked up Monstrous Volume 1 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, and I gave this a 9 out of 10. This was actually a reread. I remember buying this like pretty shortly after it like first released and loving it and never continuing on. And so I do hope to continue on with this relatively soon. I know Scribd has many of the volumes on there, so I can read them without having to pay like what is it, $20 a pop for each of these, which I would like to own physically one day. But when I have more disposable income, I just really love the world, and it's so dark and grim and the characters are so cool. I just really want to continue on with the series. Then I picked up a book that was not on any of my TBRs for any readathons or anything, and that was Laertes by Carly Stevens. And I kind of have a funny story to go along with this book. So I just searched Dark Academia on Scribd just to see what would come up, and this book came up, and I'm like, oh, Laertes, like in Hamlet. And this is indeed a Dark Academia retelling of Hamlet taking place in the 1920s. It was really good. I gave it like an 8 out of 10, I think. And then I actually, like the next day or something after saving that to my Scribd library, I just Googled or like searched on YouTube how to write Dark Academia just to see what would come up. And a video by the author, Carly Stevens, actually came up. And then I went to her website to see what other books she's written, and she has a book called The Hamlet Reader, and it's actually the like picture on it is the same free image that I had used for my Dark Academia book just to have like a placeholder cover on NaNoWriMo, and I thought that was a really funny coincidence, so that made me want to pick this up much sooner than anything else. And I had a really good time. It wasn't like great. There were some things that I wouldn't have done the same way, but overall I did really enjoy it. And then the last physical book that I read during October was Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper, and I adore this book. I gave it a 9 out of 10. There were a couple of things I would have tweaked, but not many at all. And I thought this was going to be like a light witchy rom-com, which it definitely was, but like I got so sucked into this and I cared about the characters way more than I thought I was going to, and I really want to read books 2 and 3. They're not like a straight series, it's a companion series, and so the characters in those ones are like very briefly in this, but I still want to get my hands on them. The third one has a non-binary love interest. This is sapphic with 2 bisexual main characters. We love it. We love the queer rep. This was just so good, and the cover is gorgeous. I will take that 20% off Target sticker one day. It's gonna be gone. Today is not that day. I'm very bad at taking stickers off of books, but yes, I absolutely loved this book. And then for the only DNF of this month, I tried to read All's Well by Mona Awad, and I had such high hopes for this because it is dark academia, Shakespeare focused, and a disabled main character with chronic back pain. I thought it would be right up my alley because I love dark academia, I love Shakespeare, and I myself have a chronic pain issue, so I thought I'd be able to relate to the character. I read 3 chapters and I couldn't deal with it. Just the mindset of the main character was like so dark and self-deprecating and terrible, and I felt myself getting sucked into that, and I'm like I can't do this. And also just like the way they thought about other characters was so gross, and I understand not all books have like likable main characters and not supposed to have likable main characters, but this was not for me. So I'm like, if other people enjoy it, good for them. I did not, and I did not want to put myself through reading more of it than I had already read, so I DNF'd that. And finally, the last thing that I've actually been reading for the past couple of days is Tokyo Ghoul. I don't remember who wrote it, and I'm not reading it physically, so I don't have it right in front of me to read the author's name. But I'm absolutely loving this. I have read 9 out of 14 volumes so far, so I only have 5 left. Definitely going to get them done before the end of the month. Not that I'm worried about that. I can carry over into November if need be, but I'm going to read them within like a couple of days because they're that good. This is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. There's not like anything I would change except like 1 or 2 details, but there's also something like there's nothing like wowing me about it. It's great. I am loving it so much, but it's not a favorite for me. It doesn't have that spark to it to make me want to like consider it a 10 out of 10. But every single volume, consistently 9 out of 10, so good, cannot wait to read the rest of it, and finish out the month with some killer reading. And so now it is time to get to my rolls for November, but like I said, I did not finish all of my Skee-B-R rolls for last month, so for November I have to pick from the punishment jar. I already took the lid off because it makes a really loud, annoying sound, so we're just gonna shake it up. I have not been taking things out of here as I've read them. I don't know if I've read things in here without having to pull them out, so I honestly don't remember what's even left, so we're just going to grab something if we can. And we got Boys Run the Riot, which I read in, I want to say, May or June. So we're gonna pull again. Go with Whisper Me a Love Song. So this is a sapphic manga. I don't remember many details besides it. I know it's still ongoing, so I'm probably only going to read the first couple of volumes and then stop for a little bit to let them pile up, because I do like to binge read my manga. So this happened with Zom 100, and this also happened with Blue Period. I read the first 4, 5, 6 at a time, and then I'm going to let them build up so I can read 4 or 5 at a time later. Probably the same thing happens with this. So the first thing on my November Skee-B-R TBR is Whisper Me a Love Song, and I'm only putting volume 1 on this. I have to read it, but I'm probably gonna read more than that. Okay, and here we are with our first roll for the month. And that was in the 20-point spot, so it is a friend pick. Okay, and so the first roll ended up in the 20-point spot and gave me a friend pick, so I've got my D4 here to see what friend is going to pick a book for me. We're gonna roll it. I got a 1, and that is my boyfriend. He's actually in a work meeting right now, so I'm going to ask him later to pick a book for me and then just insert the clip of whatever book he picked here. And then we're just gonna move on to the second roll. Okay, so it's been 10-15 minutes, I guess, since I messaged my boyfriend to pick a book for me, and he did. And he picked Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, I believe. Now this book is called The Final Empire? ? I have the original book before it was renamed and Mistborn became the name of the series. I bought this secondhand back in February, March maybe, earlier this year, and I'm so excited to get to this. But it's still so daunting, not just because this in itself is it's deceptively small, but it is 650 pages, and then it has 2 sequels that are even larger, and then there's the entire rest of the Cosmere. So, I'm getting into something deep in November. Yeah, and I am afraid that I will absolutely fall in love with this and immediately want to read the other 2 and completely neglect all my other reading. So, yeah, this is a bit of a doozy, but I'm very excited. I love this cover. I love the pink foiling around Mistborn and Brandon Sanderson. I don't know how well it picks up, but it is gorgeous. I'm very, very daunted by this, but also extremely excited. Alright, time for roll number 2. Another 20 points, so that's an aesthetic prompt. Okay, so for roll number 2, I got it in the 20-point spot again, and so now I have an aesthetic prompt. So I've got my green bin. I'm going to shake it up and pull out an aesthetic prompt. They weren't all stuck together. This one, cool tones, so a book with green, blue, purple on it. And I'm gonna find that book and come back. Okay, so that took much longer than expected to find a book to fit this. Turns out most of the books that I want to read right now do not have cool tones on them, but I did end up picking The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, which is very, very blue. And I've actually read this before. I read this January of 2021, and I loved it. I've been waiting for an opportunity to reread it, so this is that opportunity. And now we're at roll number 3. That is in the 10-point spot, so another aesthetic prompt. Alright, and the third roll, we have another aesthetic prompt because I rolled it in the 10-point spot this time, so I've got my green bin back out. I'm gonna shake it, and hopefully it gives us something a little bit easier to fulfill. This one, neutral tones, so browns, blacks, grays, white. That's what I consider neutral. So I'm gonna find something for you. Okay, so for this, I'm going to go with Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. It's wrapped up in twine because that's what they did when I bought it at the little bookstore I bought it at, and this is just too pretty to undo, but I'm gonna undo it to read it. But as you can see, it's mostly black and white, and the skin of the girl is brown, and it's just very neutral to me, and I'm so excited to get to this book. It is on my list of 30 books that I want to read before I turn 30, so I'm gonna get another one out of the way. I did read Wuthering Heights and Rebecca last month, which, if I remember correctly, were both on that list, so I'm killing it. I'm killing it, and I'm so excited to read this. And here we are with our fourth roll for November. A 20 points, so that's in the genre prompt. Alright, and for my fourth roll, I got it in the 20 point spot yet again, and so now I have a genre prompt. So I've got my blue bin. We're gonna shake it, and let's go with this one. Sure, why not? Non-fiction. A genre I very rarely read. Let's see what I can scrounge up. Okay, so this is not a book I was planning to pick up anytime soon, but is a book I am excited for nonetheless, and that is Manga in Theory and Practice by Hirohiko Araki. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. He is the creator of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is a manga slash anime that I actually am not a fan of, but I do really love manga in general, and I thought this was a really cool nonfiction book to buy, and it's kind of like a craft book specifically about manga, and I can't draw. I don't plan on ever making manga, but it's interesting nonetheless, so I will be reading this in November. And now we've come to our fifth and final roll. A 10 points, so that is another genre prompt. Alright, and for the last roll, I got in the 10 point spot, so it is another genre prompt. So I've got my blue bin again. Lots of bins. So we're gonna shake it up, and hopefully it gives us an easy one, because I feel like this TBR has not gone the way I thought it would. This one, mystery thriller horror. If I could speak and not be startled by the books behind me, I'm gonna find something for you guys. Alright, and for this last book, I'm going to pick The Murder Farm by Andrea Maria Schenkel. Probably mispronounced that. This is about a family on a farm that gets murdered, I'm pretty sure, and I know it is based on a true story of something that happened in Germany, and I don't really read true crime, so I'm curious to see how I like this. It's very small. I'm hoping it'll be a very quick read. I bought this because it was $1 at the dollar store. Yeah, not something I thought I would read exactly this month, but something I'm gonna read anyway. And now I just have to wait for my boyfriend to tell me what book I am picking for friend pick, and you'll have already seen that clip, and then we'll get to the outro. Okay, and now I have all of my books picked out for November. I have this stack, which is deceivingly small. So up top we have Mistborn, this was my boyfriend's pick, and we have The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which was for cool tones, Kindred was for neutral tones, Manga in Theory and Practice is for nonfiction, and then The Murder Farm is for a mystery slash thriller slash horror. Don't know why I can't say mystery today. But then on top of this, I also have to read at least the first volume of Whisper Me a Love Song. I did look it up, and there are currently 5 volumes out in English, so I'll probably read all 5 of them. Yeah, this is a lot of weird books that I did not expect to read in November, but I'm excited nonetheless. Not going to tell you which ones. Some of these actually are on my TBR for the 9 Eyes Readathon that I am hosting in November and December. You'll see that video next week. I'm going to put these down before it breaks my wrist. That is all for me today. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel for more content, and that way I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.